Hi guys, I'm Alex Buick, founder of Hustle Hub, the world's most comprehensive mentoring platform for entrepreneurs. Now today I'm joined by a very special guest. Now he's an internationally renowned keynote speaker. He's a human behaviour and cognition expert known as the See-Through Coach. He's also an award-winning best-selling author of 2 books, so A Path to Wisdom and #Loneliness. I definitely recommend checking these out. He's also the founder of TJS Cognition, which is a research, education and service institution dedicated to exploring and expanding the frontiers of the human awareness and potential. He specialises in coaching business owners who are turning over between 6 and 9 figures, and he also helps them to achieve excellence in the 8 areas of life. So he's going to touch on those later. So without further ado, introducing J Selimi.
Hello, Alex.
Hi Tony, great to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Thanks. So Tony, first of all, could you tell us a bit about where you started on your entrepreneurial journey?
I started from zero.
Yes.
And maybe sometimes I'll say below zero, meaning I had no business, I had no product, I had no profile, I didn't have any publish or any products.
Sure.
But if I go a bit further than that, I actually started when I first arrived in this country 27 years ago. I arrived living on the streets of London. And in the next 10 years, I had to go through tremendous shifts and changes in my personal, in my professional, in my business, in my emotional life, as well as trying to settle down with my own identity and trying to find a new home in a foreign country.
Sure.
So I faced extremely tough challenges to bring myself back from being on the streets of London to actually, educating myself, having a job, having clean clothes, having a normal, what we perceive to be a normal life. So I really started from that almost non-existence and started from zero to try to build my life.
That's incredible, Tony, and having read your books, I mean, it's so inspiring, and from what I've gleaned throughout your life's journey, all of the really difficult challenges that you've been through, I mean, they've all just allowed you to really develop yourself and build up just such a tremendous amount of resilience. So it's hugely inspiring.
Thank you.
Tony, in your first book, A Path to Wisdom, you talk a lot about times when you were really struggling to make ends meet and you kept going and going and you kept trying to have that positive attitude, which is great, but you just could not seem to break through and you were really struggling. And I know I've certainly been in that situation myself, and I think actually getting through that struggle allows us to get to a much higher level. But when you're really stuck and at that path, and this is something you touch on in your book, you recommend that you then need to actually seek external help and coaching or mentoring. So how important do you think coaching and mentoring is in terms of breaking through and getting out of the position that you may be stuck in?
Mentoring and coaching is a perfect tool that any entrepreneur, leader or business owner can use to actually transform, change, accelerate, advance and elevate their business. Sure. As well as their people, as well as their products, as well as their service. So every company out there, they employ consultants and specialized, skilled people to grow their business. So clearly they're not going wrong. Every successful sports star has a coach. Clearly they're not going wrong. They're becoming extremely successful. Every successful person on the planet has a mentor or a coach. Clearly, they've done very well for themselves. So if it's a person out there who's on an entrepreneurial journey and they truly want to design something, while we may have most beautiful skills, experiences and knowledge, if we don't have somebody to be a great mirror to help us extract that wisdom outside of ourselves and package it in a way that not only supports building your business, but actually inspires and ignites wisdom in other people, and you become of service to other people, you just remain that like a coal that is buried deep inside the ground, and people do not go deep enough to unravel it, to polish it, to make it a diamond.
That's absolutely true, Tony. And I think one big problem when it comes to mentoring and coaching is a lot of people think, oh, you know, I'm really struggling in my business, I haven't got any money, so therefore I can't afford the mentoring and coaching. But I think people need to really just shift their mindset and think, okay, mentoring coaching is an investment in yourself. Now, sometimes you have to find a way to finance it, but other times you can find ways around it. You could find somebody who can perhaps start out by mentoring you for free in the beginning, but I think essentially it's really vital to get yourself a really top level coach.
What I would add to that,
yes.
It's one of the first things that each entrepreneur person can do is actually break that illusion and way of talking when they say they can't afford something. Because if you go in that person's life, there's many things that are already affordable for them.
Yes.
So the first thing that needs to change in any human being is about, instead of saying I can't afford it and I will afford it later on, is to ask the question right here, right now, meaning what is it I can do to make it affordable?
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's more of like a shift in your language. How can I afford it? And that also actually taps into something I was going to touch on. In business, it's really essential to come from a place of abundance and not a place of scarcity. Because when you're operating from a place of scarcity, you're acting in a defensive mode, which it doesn't generally lead to the grand opportunities that you really need to get to become successful. So you really need to shift your mindset.
So mindset is one of the key things for many entrepreneurs. They struggle because I see many people, and I think Joachim experienced about 5 days of frying his brains with wisdom and knowledge what it is to actually upgrade the inner operating system. What I've seen, one of the main mistakes that most of entrepreneurs do is they go outside of themselves to try to build the business. Meaning they'll do workshops and seminars designed to build their business outside themselves. Without preparing the inner work.
Absolutely.
Without doing the inner work, which is actually building the business inside themselves. And without really understanding the intelligence inside themselves that is required to be in harmony, in alignment with their true values.
Sure.
So they go and try to model things outside because somebody else has modeled it, and it may work for other people, but then spend the time and energy and they realize they're not really receiving their worth, although they've done the same steps. And then they come to me and say it's not working. Well, you know, let me go proper in the process and see where whatever model you used, why it's not working. And usually I find out in most cases it's not the model that they're using that's not working. It's the way they're using the model that's not working.
Absolutely. I mean, I've done a lot of self-development work myself, so I've certainly learned that actually mastering your inner game is fundamental, and actually success is built on the inside. So that's really, really critical. But Tony, you just touched on your intensive course, which one of your clients has been on actually. So could you tell us what that's actually about, what it's called, and what it entails?
Absolutely. One of my signature programs, which all of my clients, they have to go through before they start working with me. It's called Vital Planning for Elevated Living.
Yes.
Now, everything in the world that we've created has a plan. So meaning, if you are an entrepreneur and building a business, unless you have a clear plan of action in all of the 8 key areas in your life, no matter what business you are building, you're going to be procrastinating and you're going to be coming to so many struggles before you can actually create that. So if I put that in context, we would not build most sophisticated airport if we don't have the best planners and we don't plan in advance well the runways, how the travel will go through there, how the communication at the airport would be, how the whole airport would communicate with the country, with the world.
Sure.
So we have tremendous planning. So in a similar way, the Vital Planning for Elevated Living is designed to help people understand the intelligence within themselves and do that inner work in a very fast, intensive way that almost upgrades their inner being to the kind of life and business they want to create.
Okay.
So if a client comes to me saying, okay, I've got the 1 million, I want to build 10 million, 50, 100 million, the programs are adjusted in a way that they upgrade them inside themselves with the plan, with the processes, with the values, with the beliefs, with all the required elements that I share in detail in my vital planning for them to expand to that growth. So it becomes very achievable for them in a very clear, digestive steps.
Fantastic. We're actually lucky enough to have one of Tony's clients who's actually just finished doing this intensive course. So would you like to come and introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Jochen Gerhardt, so I'm a successful entrepreneur and a dream builder coach. And I assist people who want to move from having a job into starting their own business, and also startups who actually want to bring their business to the next level. Now, I found Tony, actually, it was late last year. It was a sort of cold, was it December or November evening? And a couple of things had gone sort of wrong on the day, and I wasn't even meant to be there. I went to a Toastmasters session, right?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like something it had been in my diary for many weeks. And there was another event which I didn't feel like going, and then I was supposed to do a session with a client, got cancelled short notice.
Yeah.
So long story short, I went that night.
Okay.
And I met quite a few amazing people, but the most amazing one sitting right next to me. And I didn't quite understand who I had met that evening. There was, have you been to a Toastmasters? They have this.
Yes, I have.
The last bit is like when they pull people from the audience to the front. And since I think one of Tony's clients was hosting the event, she pulled Tony out, and then you put on the spot, and you do a speech.
Sure.
And I was very impressed, and for some reason he didn't win that night. I told him he should have won, but anyways, long story short, I felt something already, so I texted him the next morning, WhatsApp text, and so I said, well, I'd like to understand more what is your elite coaching, what is that all about? Because I work as a coach, and I feel, wow, as an elite coach, so I must be the next level, or what I now learned, a couple of next levels up. So let's understand more, right? So, text him, and a couple of minutes later, he calls me. I'm like almost shocked. Okay, pick up the phone. I'm in the area. Actually, I had learned that he lives in the area in Pimlico, where I live, in London, central London, and I'm just having lunch. Do you want to join me? And I had a coaching session scheduled for the full hour, but it was only 1:15 midday, so that was at 1 o'clock. My knee-jerk reaction was, oh, I can't because I have a coaching session. Hang up the phone. Like a few seconds later, I said, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Call him back. Luckily picks up the phone. Yes, of course I'm available. Where can we meet? And he's literally almost my neighbor. So there was was it a Pret or something?
Right.
We met in a cafe, and I got a quick 40-minute download. I guess I got my brain fried the first time. I was very impressed, and I walked away, and I think the same day I ordered this book, his first book, A Path to Wisdom, and just ordered it on Amazon. So, don't know, a couple of days later, I started to meditate again, and the first session actually, something hit me in the meditation. Just something told me, get in touch with Tony again. So I just texted him, and can I take you out for dinner? I'd like to understand more. Right. He's like, yeah, you can take me out for dinner, but really what you might want to consider is booking a first session with me. So that's what we did. We met in the Grosvenor Hotel, just around the corner from where we are now, Victoria Station, and booked the first session. And I was just amazed at almost what hit me, but it was really out there, but I felt something is right. There's some truth in what he's saying to me. Some truth, there is a lot of truth. And he said to me one thing at the very beginning: if you work with a coach, you have to trust him. And then he laid out for me how he would be suggesting from his point of view where I'm at now in my life, how he would be working with me, how many hours that is, how much cost that is, and all those things. And I decided right there, this is what I need to do. So that was a short question and a long answer. So
no, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And just kind of following on from that, another question I've got is, what would you say have been the main breakthroughs for you, having attended this course over the last 5 days?
Okay,
I mean,
well,
aha
how
moment.
much time do we have? Because I mean, if you could look around, we don't want to move the cameras now, but the whole room here is full of, you know, what is that? Not what do you call this thing? A flip chart, and I don't know where to start, to be honest. Okay, for me, the main thing to come in was to work on my self-worth, to be very open and to be very transparent, and that's just been upgraded to a whole new level. So as a coach, you work and you have a certain self-worth, and that's how much you charge your clients, and that's the clients you attract. I mean, you know this stuff. And I just felt like late last year I hit a bit of a brick wall, because I started coaching some time ago, and I just felt something is not really moving forward. I'm not really going, learning the lessons and so forth. So that was one of the big things this week. We just went to a couple of exercises. It's about knowing your financial game, knowing your finances inside out, and knowing yourself on a spiritual, emotional, familiar, love, all kinds of levels. There's 7 or 8 of them. He will run them down. I'm not quite there yet. So that's one of the big takeaways for me already. But then using your perceptions. Opportunities within 1 meter where you are. Opportunities now and here. What can you do every day to create opportunity for yourself? How can you up-level your seeing opportunities and not just seeing them and thinking about them, but actually taking steps to make them happen?
Sure.
And these are just 2 things. I could probably go on with another 30, unless you narrow down what you like to know. I hand it back to you for now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate your time. It's really great to get an insight from somebody who's actually been through the process. So thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Now, Tony, one of the things that was touched on there was talking about increasing your self-worth. And this brings me around to a point that you mentioned in quite detail in your book. So it's essential to have a really strong self-worth and to actually love yourself. So what would you say is the importance of having a high self-worth and really actually learning to love yourself? And how does that come across in terms of being successful in business?
Now, there's 2 types of people. People who basically, they've done embodiment of what self-worth means, and people who talk about it, what self-worth is, but they're actually not walking the talk.
Okay.
And then you have people in the middle who are in the process of increasing their self-worth. Now, when you have low self-worth, what most people don't see is how that is radiated through your energy field. So how is that communicated to anybody wherever you are? So therefore, if you show up in a room of most amazing people, having a low self-worth will actually close down all of those opportunities that have just been presented to you. For instance, with my client, I always do this. I introduce them to my high net worth clients, and then I create a straight-on opportunities for them to do what I teach them in the course. So in one of the things we touched on with Joachim, it's about learning to spot how you add value to every human being within 1 meter next to you, and how you can transform that relationship into being able to pitch them through knowing what this person needs and wants. Most people are not aware at that level of awareness how that constantly radiates.
Sure.
So when you learn that inside out, and this is this program, Vital Planning for Elevated Living, it's really that inside out upgrade. You start to spot opportunities at the level of self-worth that you've gone through in yourself. So when I put my clients on the spot with another multimillionaire client, I first of all taught him in here how he could have pitched his business to me right here and created all of the money he's spending with me, which is a lot of money, instantly back in his life by being able to pitch a product which is aligned to my business, to my customers, and to my values. So when you don't know that in yourself, there's no way you can actually pitch that to another human being. So therefore, you could be in a room full of diamonds, and you will think there are crystals that you can play with.
Thank you very much for that insight. And what I would just add to that is, if you don't have a high self-worth, then you're subconsciously you're going to be in a mode of kind of rejection. So if you're entering where you're going into a deal and you may expect to lose, the outcome is that subconsciously that energy and that message is carried across, and you end up not winning the deal. Whereas vice versa is true. If you've got a really high level of confidence and high level of self-worth, it really carries itself across in business. So it's really fundamental.
Absolutely. It's the low self-worthiness when it's applied across all key areas of your life, where spiritually you feel unworthy, where mentally you feel unworthy, emotionally you feel unworthy, physically you feel unworthy, business you feel unworthy, in relationship you feel unworthy, in love you feel unworthy.
Yes.
So when you bring this and apply it consistently to your inner being will radiate that signal. Meaning, instead of being in 4G, you'll be being in 2G, so you won't have all the experiences that 4G can bring on your mobile phone, and being able to download movies and fast internet and even transmit this video to all the Facebook users. So if you had an old technology in there, this experience will not be able to be shared with thousands of people across the internet. We are exactly the same as the technology we designed. I just created a unique tool that I talk about in Path to Wisdom, which is 25 conscious engineering steps, which can be applied across multi-level areas of our life and help them expand and elevate and accelerate the growth in all of those areas. And when you do that in parallel, and when you work with an expert to help you do that and understand the diamond that you are, then people naturally will want to buy you and naturally want to give you as a gift. And therefore most of my clients become agents and introduce me to other people, and therefore we co-create bigger experiences together.
Absolutely.